The lights inside the London Royal Theatre shimmered like stars frozen in a velvet sky. Hundreds of audience members filled the seats, some leaning forward in anticipation, some casually chatting, and others scrolling on their phones. It was the kind of night where anything could happen, where hidden talent could burst into the open like a long-trapped bird finally breaking free. And on that night, the stage belonged to the world, the judges, the cameras, and a 16-year-old Filipino orphan girl named Liana Mae Santos. Liana stood backstage, tightly hugging the saxophone case she'd carried from Manila to London. For most people, the long flight was tiring. For Liana, it was overwhelming. She had never been on a plane before. She had never left the Philippines. She had never even seen a theater this grand, not on TV, not in pictures, and definitely not in person. Everything felt too big, the stage too bright, the moment too heavy for her small frame. Contestant 172, Liana Mae Santos, a crew member called out. Liana swallowed hard, her palms sweating around the handle of the case. She whispered something under her breath, a small prayer she had memorized since childhood. Not a prayer for fame, not for money, not even for success. Just one thing: Lord, please, let Mama and Papa hear me today. Then she stepped forward. The crew member lifted the curtain slightly, guiding her toward the blinding glow of the stage. As she walked out, the audience saw only a petite girl with long black hair, wearing a simple white blouse and hand-me-down jeans that were a little too big around her waist. Compared to the flashy dancers and glamorous singers who had performed earlier, she looked ordinary. Unremarkable, easy to overlook, but something in her eyes, those deep, dark, shimmering eyes, held a quiet storm no one could name yet. Simon Cowell glanced at her from the judges' table, eyebrows slightly raised. There was something unusual about the way she held her saxophone case, as though it wasn't an instrument but a lifeline. He leaned forward. "Hello there. What's your name, sweetheart?" Liana took a tiny, shaky breath. "My name is Liana. Liana Mae Santos." Her voice was soft, so soft that the microphone barely caught it. Some audience members smiled sympathetically. Others whispered among themselves. Simon continued gently, "Where are you from?" "I'm from Quezon City, Philippines." The crowd applauded, and Liana's cheeks warmed with shy surprise. "Welcome, Liana," Simon said with a noticeably softer tone than usual. "How old are you?" "I'm 16. "That's young," he replied. "Are you here with your parents?" The question hit her like a bullet she had been trying to outrun. Her lips trembled. "No, I'm here alone." A hush fell over the room. "My parents died when I was 9, she added quietly. "Since then, I've been living in an orphanage." The audience murmured, sadly, tenderly. Simon's face softened. "I'm very sorry to hear that." Liana nodded politely, though sorrow weighed down her shoulders. "So," Simon said gently, "what made you choose the saxophone?" Liana opened her saxophone case as though revealing a secret treasure. "This was my father's," she said. "He taught me how to play. When he died, I promised I would never stop." A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. She wiped it quickly with the back of her hand, embarrassed. Amanda Holden whispered to Alicia Dixon, "Oh my goodness, this girl." Even the audience leaned in. "And what will you be performing for us tonight?" Simon asked. She hesitated, then looked straight into his eyes, fearful yet determined. "A song my mother used to sing to me. You are the reason, but I rearranged it for saxophone. I hope you like it." Simon exchanged glances with the judges. A saxophone version of a Callum Scott classic. Ambitious, risky, unpredictable. But Liana didn't wait for approval. She gently lifted the sax, its brass surface reflecting the stage lights like liquid gold. She positioned her fingers, closed her eyes, and breathed in the deepest breath of her life. Then she began. The first note was so soft, it felt like a whisper sailing across a silent ocean. But the tone, the tone, was pure, warm, and heartbreakingly fragile. Like a memory slowly unfolding. Like a message spoken between souls rather than ears. The whole room stilled, even Simon. The second note rose, shaped by longing, soaked in pain, and carried by hope. It soared higher, fuller, trembling but never breaking. Before anyone realized it, the melody had wrapped the theater in a warm, invisible embrace, one that was both comforting and devastating. People stared, some bit their lips, some clasped their hands to their chests. Some were already crying, because Liana wasn't just playing the saxophone. She was pouring out years of loneliness, Years of missing faces she could barely remember, years of nights spent wondering why life had taken everything from her except this one gift, this sound. Every note felt like a voice she didn't have the courage to use. Every breath felt like a wound reopening. But her music didn't scream. It prayed. She shifted into the chorus, her fingers gliding with breathtaking precision. The sax soared, filling the air with raw emotion, grief, love, longing, all woven into a single, trembling melody that felt like a heartbeat. A man in the front row covered his mouth to stifle a sob. A mother hugged her daughter tighter. A teenage boy wiped his eyes discreetly, hoping no one saw. Even the stage crew backstage froze to listen. Amanda's tears spilled freely. Alicia pressed a hand over her heart. Bruno stared, stunned, muttering, "My God, she's extraordinary." But Simon wasn't just moved. He was broken. His eyes glistened, something that rarely happened. His jaw clenched, not in irritation, but in an invisible effort to hold himself together. Because for the first time in many seasons, a performance wasn't just music. It was truth. Liana reached the instrumental high point, where the original song would soar into a cry of desperation. She lifted her chin, let out a long breath, and launched into a soaring, breathtaking, impossibly emotional sax run that no one expected. It rose like a scream of a child reaching for a mother who wasn't there. It fell like a whisper of a father promising he'd return but couldn't. It climbed, and climbed, and climbed, and then it broke open like a flood. The entire theater gasped as one. That final note, long, aching, beautiful, hung in the air like a single teardrop made of sound. And when it finally faded, the silence that followed was so deep it felt like the earth itself was listening. Then, the audience erupted. People shot to their feet. Applause thundered like a storm. Screams filled the theater. "Bravo! Oh my God! That was unbelievable!" Amanda was crying uncontrollably. Alicia wiped her tears while smiling like a proud sister. Even Bruno was dabbing his eyes with a handkerchief he hadn't planned to use. But Simon didn't stand. He didn't clap. He didn't speak. He simply stared at Liana as though she had just revealed a part of his own heart he didn't know still existed. Liana lowered her sax, overwhelmed and unsure. Was his silence bad? Did he hate it? Did she do something wrong? Before she could spiral into panic, Simon slowly pushed back his chair and stood. The theater went silent again. He breathed out shakily, eyes still glassy. "Liana," he said, his voice cracking. In a way the audience had never heard before, "that was one of the most beautiful things I have ever heard in my entire life." The crowd roared, but Simon wasn't done. "When you walked out," he continued, "I saw a shy girl who seemed unsure if she belonged here. But the moment you played that first note, I knew we weren't just listening to music. We were listening to your heart." Liana's lips trembled, her eyes filled. "You told your story," Simon said softly. "And you told it in a way no words ever could. You honored your parents, and I promise you, wherever they are so proud." She broke down in tears. The audience clapped again, softer this time, like a hug. Simon wiped his face discreetly and smiled at her. "I think," he said, glancing at the golden buzzer in front of him, "the world needs to hear you." The audience screamed. Amanda covered her mouth. Alicia gasped. Bruno jumped up from his seat. And Simon slammed the golden buzzer. The theater exploded with sparkling gold confetti raining down like blessings from the heavens. Liana covered her face, sobbing uncontrollably as the judges rushed toward her. Amanda hugged her tightly, whispering, "You deserve this, sweetheart. You really do." Alicia rubbed her back, while Bruno clapped joyfully beside them. Simon approached last. He placed a gentle hand on Liana's shoulder. "You are not alone anymore," he said quietly. "You have us now, and you have the world." Liana cried harder, overwhelmed by a kind of joy she had never experienced, not in the orphanage, not in the streets of Manila, not in the quiet moments she practiced her saxophone to fight off loneliness. This was different. This was family. This was love. This was the moment she finally understood that her music, her father's saxophone, her mother's lullaby, her own trembling breath, had carried her across the world for a reason. She wasn't just playing for survival anymore. She was playing for life. For hope. For them. Liana's golden buzzer moment spread across the internet like wildfire. Within 24 hours, her performance had 20 million views. People around the world recorded reaction videos, crying, cheering, gasping. Musicians tried to replicate her emotional run. Fans created countless edits with captions like, "The girl who made Simon cry. This is why we love Filipino talent. Her saxophone has more emotion than most singers." But the person most changed was Liana herself. She received letters from children in orphanages around the world, kids who saw her as proof that their dreams weren't impossible. She received offers from music schools she never imagined she could even visit. She received love, support, encouragement, all from strangers who felt connected to her soul through music. And every night, before sleeping, she whispered the same prayer. "Mama, Papa, thank you. I made it." She wasn't rich. She wasn't a superstar yet. She wasn't living in a mansion or wearing glamorous clothes. But she had something greater than all of that. She had purpose. She had hope. She had a future. And she had the sound of a golden moment that would forever echo not just in theaters or cameras or social media, but in hearts. Because sometimes, the most powerful stories don't come from fame or fortune. They come from a quiet girl holding a saxophone like a lifeline. Playing not to impress, but to remember, to survive, to love, and to live.